Don't you hate it when someone acts tough and takes zero accountability and blame for their problems, whenever called out? Yeah, that's what arrogant man-children in that cursed platforms do. I don't have anything to say much, given I was on my way to talk about a certain event that felt overdue here and there, but for a while, I have been on my mind quite lately, wrap around my head. Because someone has been getting away with it for years and somehow ignores his toxic behaviors and so on, thinking he's a Superman of the internet, but in reality, a very immature overgrown adult who can't take criticism and throws temper tantrums every time someone talks sense to him. I have no secret that I have been planning to talk about a certain egotistical deviant who someone should have called out a long time ago, when they had the chance, and I have been waiting for too long. A person by the name of Smoking-Wrecker2814, Akito Epic Wrecker, or even Daniel Trinka, his real name. I heard almost everything about him, and boy, this guy is an average deviant edgelord who makes terrible calls out, as poor reviewers, cries over the internet trolls, and all this stuff. And especially his obsession with certain Nicktoons is a bit too much. I once made a video about him before, but gotta say it's a pretty half-ass attempt, so I ultimately decided to full remake with the evidence against him for the kind of person he really is. At least, that's all I could ever find in quietly investigating his behavior. That said, let's dive into the hackneyed yard in a particular funny memes guide he published. This may be a limited topic that I have addressed as content, since he deleted most of the filling gaps, so I did all I could to invest in one of the pointless and questionable memes. For starters, Smoking-Wrecker has been making tons of unfunny memes, the likes of fill-in slops that he desperately tries to make funny but fails miserably and flat out doesn't make any sense in poor crossover memes. Like, his memes about the Thunderbolt team assemble that he created an effort for an accurate team, which one of them is rather unfit and doesn't like that. I don't think Shadow Counter-Rookies should be cast as John Walker cause of their incoherent personality or similar traits. Or any of it. I sorta get with the leader that seems to fit in the roles, and so does the other two, but most of them are pretty inaccurate and unfit, which never makes sense and they are nothing alike. And neither does the incoherent recast and low effort in Disney films recasts. Sheesh, almost deviant are really bad at recasting memes or whatnot to make their point, and mostly rely on their most favorite ones or something. I'm sure someone has a better casting direction, with more thorough research and performance that incorporates personality traits. It's not like they are gonna rely on most favorite cartoons and put on a recast in different media and make a shitty crossover version of Use Adventure. Well, maybe not. The point is, Smoking-Wrecker used a cartoon he liked and attempted to be witty, when he had to use a cheap method by praising other characters and trying to act tough in an attempt to beat certain overpowered villains, and in sashes shockingly meet the old cursed Sonic design, or have kids get frightened by Penny the Clown in Holy Mems reactions. And apparently, Zoidberg was afraid of an old hag in disguise, and probably Snow White ate the apple poison while at it. It seems Daniel has a habit of putting good shows or media to bash on stuff he hates with a poorly punk line like edgelord does and is too lazy and low creativity to come up with effort in comedic memes. I remember the time when he bashes the shit out of little kid shows upon filling gaps, mostly just because of little shows, and apparently has a deep hatred toward these shows, especially like Kyle and Dora the Explorer. I have no clue what they ever do to him mentally, but no need to freaking out, and it's just a little kid show. Okay, he might have outgrown his hatred for little kid shows, and I hear he doesn't do that shit anymore, I guess. However, he wastes no time talking shit about literal little kid shows and still has deep hatred in these shows. And even freaking out over baby sharks that ticked him off easily and wanted to rip his ears out. Which, not gonna lie, I actually forgot baby shark is even a thing, and I think I heard that brain rats on a million times in a not good way. In all seriousness, there's no need to crash out over the whole brain-rot kid media and act as if it's the end of the world. I think Smoking-Wrecker took his hatred of stuff he doesn't like and bit too far upon his butts for tape memes about little kids showing whatnot that he probably needs to see his therapy because of it due to average drag and drop syndrome. I honestly imagine if the whole little kids show ate in 2026, which it doesn't surprise me for one bit. Plus, there is one time when Smoking-Wrecker is crying about his beloved Ronnie Carl has a distance relationship and desperately hoping not to break up, as an iconic statement that they meant to be together. Without knowing the spin-off was eventually greenlit after constant demand and giving them what they wanted in exchange for catering to the shippers and whatnot. And even cartoon abuse anytime he lashes out and takes cartooning little too seriously as well, but I'll get to it a bit later. Therefore, Smoking-Wrecker treats fictional characters like they are real people and agrees with him, as if they have feelings, despite fictional characters rarely doing jack shit, and I doubt they would agree with him, since he used fictional characters as a weapon in lame arguments or comebacks. You do know that a fictional character is a fictional character, right? Using other characters as a mouthpiece after making memes and shit doesn't make your point valid, and looks immature the more you yakety-yak about stuff you didn't like or stuff like that. The way you used fictional characters as a weapon every time something that bothers you or pointless content, even in the slightest. And his actual memes aren't much better, and Smoking-Wrecker has several low-quality efforts to come up with a sense of humor from actual memes. At least he does with edgy humor memes about a Menti.
The trailer for this game called Amenti came into my feed one day. It looks creepy, even that queen scared the daylights out of me.
I get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't see the point of making these kinds of memes and fruitless attempts at the time. 10 out of 10 for not so dank memes. On top of that, Smoking-Wrecker has repeatedly used the same memes anytime he reused the actual memes and same ideas, which proves Smoking-Wrecker has run out of any ideas and proves people's point a million times and can't make good memes. Not even he freaked out over spam mailing over-dramatized for trivial things when he simply blocked the empty junk sections and whined about it. Sure, spam mail is annoying, as shit and all, but you have to make memes just to complain and take your vent out in the smallest things. And I also liked how he doesn't tolerate fictional characters laughing at fictional character crying for mean-spirited tones and its insensitivity. Yet no problem with fictional crying about celebrities passing away in film slops. And not only that, he makes memes about them, as he thought it was a good idea to make memes about them, as a part of tribute. I understand someone makes iconic memes and it's sad someone is passing away, but for the love of God, never use memes, actual or film, and you could say either draw, write an eulogy, or simply say, rest in peace. I already know people out there try to defend it and argue it's not disrespecting the dead if it's used character quotes, but it's no excuse, especially the one he used a lot is basically pneumatic and it has no right to call them out when he makes kind of memes and nothing else. And not even this kind, when he has to make very pointless references and ask questions about pointless references from crossovers from certain movies, shows, and so on. I honestly don't understand why people treat this site like tweeting sites, as if Bluesky or even Twitter simply don't exist in favor of publishing here, desperately seeking popularity. Like, what was the even point about that's the reference in the first place? If so, then another 13 reason why DeviantArt is not an art site anymore, hence they only focus in filling gaps and AI slops shit. He may seem to have stopped making filling gaps, but the damage is pretty much beyond repair, given that he encourages them to make more filling slops and became popular and homered of the site because of it. In fact, he is partially responsible for causing the DeviantArt site's downfall even before the whole AI generated even exists, and he has no problems with pointless content as an excuse for hating ruined filling slops and just the laziness. If you think about it, it's no wonder Smoking-Wrecker never improved his content for years, given from a cesspool of low-quality content and being edgy when it comes to making memes and blanket point lines. I don't think I have a lot to say about this, so I'll gonna make this as quick as possible, given fanfiction is nothing but pure chaos and cursed fanfic of the titular sites. Smoking-Wrecker is known for writing fanfictions, and he writes tons of superhero fanfics that involve characters getting superpowers, crossovers, and so on. Mostly, it almost involves Loud House fanfic that he created superheroes, even when he somehow forgot Ace Savvy even exists in the slightest. If I am being honest about his fanfic, it wasn't much better compared to the low-quality memes he makes. From the look of it, Smoking-Wrecker doesn't know how to make a good story, as he mostly relies on Loud House and making the cast of Loud House superpowers and branding Lincoln and his sisters as a typical average Avengers team. Thus, Smoking-Wrecker seems to be so obsessed with Marvel, DC, Transformers, and anything comic book related, so naturally, he makes a story about a cartoon he loves and creates superhero fanfic, as Brawl thinks he's a Stan Lee fanfic writer and has no clue how to write a superhero fanfic. If he becomes a writer, he'll probably have to try out writing auditions involving Marvel Studios and try to make Loud House Marvel-style translation into this, though I doubt they would be fit into this one. I'm certain people write way better than those who have a better story, a better experience, and no rehash fanfic, like a dozen comic books from Marvel, and so on. I wish I were a writer, if only someone would hire them to teach me how to write on a computer and pencil in my hands to make a life documentary. The point is, Daniel has been making the same plot and the same story over and over, anytime he makes a certain character get a superpower and an origin story, proving he couldn't come up with different ideas most of the time. In other words, most of his fanfics are nothing but repetitive and rehashed a million times and listen to the same origin story all over again. Lincoln gets a ghost superpower, Ronnie M gets a superpower by getting bitten by a radioactive spider, Casagrunds have gained powers from shockwave caused from promethium, Lincoln discovered he's an alien and got superpowers, Twilight gets bitten by a spider with equestrian magic, and so much more. From what I understand, as I previously stated, Smoking-Wrecker has an unhealthy obsession with superhero franchises and cartoons that he mixed up to cartoon superheroes and calls it a day, while making rehashes and repetitive fanfic stories. I kinda get why he's doing it just for fun and doing it to inspire the late Stanley or something, but it doesn't change that Smoking-Wrecker has little to no creativity and contradictory superhero fanfic in the overall plot. Well, he does make non-superhero fanfic, but from what I stumbled upon, Smoking-Wrecker once wrote violent fanfic in his least favorite just to vent his frustration and make him feel better. And, of course, he has to make violent fanfic out of Sliper as well. Whatever it is, I already sense Smoking-Wrecker is acting like an edgy person for writing this and promoting himself to be patriot, even if he may not care for little kids shows anymore. So yeah, his fanfic is a repetitive and boring story. As much as I would go on with this, but I got nothing else to say cause it might repeat myself and recycle what I covered in his low quality memes since it's not just a titular site, it's cursed websites, but also full of overgrown adults who took cartoons too seriously and zero creativity. At least Lockwood, while flawed, has more effort and creative ideals, unlike that condemned titular site. If I have to put it bluntly about this guy, Smoking-Wrecker is a great gay example of opinionated and the biggest egotistical critic I had ever seen. Most of his opinions are filled with gibberish and contradict several points, where he took cartoons and media a little too seriously and complained about the movie a bit too much. Like, I've seen him shit on the new norm, Tail Copal Family Guy, and all he does is just complain and blame Twitter for making the movie out of spite and gibbering and ticked off over Twitter apparently making the show English. That cursed website's shut down because of it. And immediately mindless insults toward the show and the creator, just because Twitter made this. I honestly do not know what he's yapping about, so I'm not gonna bother digging in, given his political views. Upon giving his reviews, he spent most of the time complaining, throwing characters as a half-ass argument, and used opinion as facts just to prove his points, and always yapping that he keeps on gibberish shit anytime he talks shit about a movie he doesn't like. Thus, Smoking-Wrecker is shown to be acting like an egotistical edgelord, the way his poor takes on the Yonji movie, when he is accused of being a pale copy of Wreck-It Ralph and Inside Out, and shames the creator and developer for making such movies and uses his favorite movies to bash other movies. Sheesh, always used other films or whatever to shit on the movie you hate most of the time, as if Brawl thinks he's professional. You know, you really don't have to use other films just to talk trash about a movie you hate and act like pure egoism when it comes to reviewing films, shows, or anything that doesn't make your point valid. And either is bringing a fictional character to bubbling up against your least favorite films, especially when Smoking-Wrecker is throwing a fit over the Teen Titans Go movie and wastes no time using popular movie films just to trash Teen Titans Go and brag about how these movies are way better than his least favorite movies and shoveling people's opinions down their throats. Of course, Smoking-Wrecker made a butt for tape memes out of the former CEO during her time with Cartoon Network, cursed her for ruining Teen Titans with little to no trace of charge of schedule or anything. Do you realize that fussing about Teen Titans Go is not gonna bring your precious Teen Titans 2003 back, right? Sure, Teen Titans 2003 apparently ended in cliffhangers and yet to be resolved after the ending, but he should know that Teen Titans Go is meant to be a parody show, and no one forced them to watch that show if it's not an action cartoon. And the way you cry over reboot shows and lose respect for Cartoon Network over simply 3 crappy shows you hate is beyond laughable and childish reason to turn against the said network. I admit, I used to watch these two before I drifted away, especially the one scene that I do not want to talk about, and way too much burdensome cringe. Regardless, though I never cared for either of them, I don't use my favorite stuff just to bash beaten to death shows and turn against them for a petty reason. He may have left the Teen Titans them long ago after his acknowledgement, but seeing one tweet or so, it's clear that Smoking-Wrecker still has deep hatred toward the said parody, showing desperately begs not to bring the app in any stream services and contradict himself. Funny enough, Smoking-Wrecker has bored Train in David's Ashlab after he purged the whole animation in Bone X and encouraged them to have shitons of hate memes and hate art out of him. As much as I love that CEO due to the incident, I think he took his hatred of the CEO a little too far. I like how he tries to act neutral over the whole situation, despite he wishes to make a parody episode about South Park just to spite and rub the CEO's face that he shouldn't be talking and how far toxic cartoon abuse the more the acts, as an excuse for justice for Looney Tunes campaigns. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if I find out they make mock episodes and cater to crying cartoon abuse to make it feel better and still assume their beloved cartoons are gonna bring it back. I could say the same thing for his poor takes on Wish, his hot takes, and South Park that he cried over his JW features and dealt with anti-SJW that ticked him off. I'm gonna say it, it's South Park, so what did you expect? I swear, Smoking-Wrecker loves complaining about everything and acting like a typical SJW as usual, as far as I can tell, while he is indeed making a fool of himself. Another thing, most of his opinions are flat-out gibberish and dense memes that make even more contradictions, where Smoking-Wrecker stated the Loud House is overrated and paints the hate-dom as the new level to Teen Titans Go hate-dom, assumedly because of internet trolls or critics. Like, first off, how the Loud House is overrated when this show is popular, and people still watch today for a sole reason. While it's true that the Loud House haters are just as bad as degenerate stans, it doesn't excuse someone who treats Loud House like it's the second and third coming of Jesus and views his opinion as if it's a true documentary to get tons of people to agree with him. And secondly, there is nowhere near overrated as Teen Titans Go, cause I can barely find anything hate art or hate memes that aren't satire or troll posts. Believe it or not, it's clear that Smoking-Wrecker used it as an excuse to dismiss feedback and complain about constant criticism and over-defended the Loud House a bit too much. Hell, I remember the times when Smoking-Wrecker doesn't take too kindly when someone paints the Loud House as cash cow due to constantly hogging the schedule and the spin-off and tries to deny that the Loud House is not milking dry, to the point he is either too arrogant or stubborn to realize before ultimately acknowledging a bit. I honestly like how he complains about Family Guy, Rick and Morty, and SpongeBob being overstaying their welcome, yet he's fine with the Loud House and doesn't bat an eye and proving to be a double standard. It's also worth noting that Smoking-Wrecker gets easily butthurt whenever a debunked theory about Lincoln is adopted and outright shovels it down their throats and brags about how that theory is debunked and proceeds to insult and attack people who are treated as such. I actually forgot the theory is even a thing, and I was one of the people who used to think Lincoln was adopted, given his white hair, and I didn't like how the explanation goes and that episode makes no sense, to be honest. But that's beside the point. It is also a very contemptuous way that he criticizes that the Loud House would be boring once it becomes too wholesome family, whenever they complain about sibling fights and contradict several points in exchange for pointless dramas and unhinged, mean-spirited tones, and argue they are supposed to be quote-unquote slice-of-life show purposes.
So they're cool with the Powerpuff Girls, Bart and Lisa Simpson, Sprig and Polly Plantar, and any other fictional siblings arguing and fighting, yet they hate it when the loud siblings fight and argue. You guys know that siblings will fight and argue, right? It's kind of like that in the real world. Even my sister and I argued when we were kids. We're cool now, but still. Also, you want them to not fight in any Loud House episodes and add more heartwarming moments instead of comedy. So, like this? That already sounds awful. The show would get boring as it is. Look, I know some people hate conflict, but it's needed for storytelling or else there's nothing at all. As for execution, well, it all depends on the eye of the beholder. Plus, if you want a show that has heartwarming moments in every episode, go watch Full House.
You can easily say the same for people who treat this liberal kid show like it's a romantic dramedy, since they want to have everything romance and couldn't stop crying about their precious Ronnie Carl is not on screen or anything, and did not get what they want. Besides, I don't know what he's crying about the whole distance relationship, whereas it's not like their precious Ronnie and is written off out of spite, given this is loud cause we're talking about. If I'm dead, he always used Ronnie and is not a bully anymore to brush off criticism and lazy writing anytime her deed is constantly brought up. She may have outgrown her bullying persona and better person as of now, but that doesn't mean she's a good character just because of character development nonsense. And it gets worse with one status posting rather absurd and twaddle statements, as he is looking to act tough and superior, yet typical cartoon abuse, and he only tolerates them just because his friends and further egoism.
I'm just gonna say it. If you're one of those users who makes hate art or hate memes on any show, movie, or etc. you hate, like non-stop, even having a folder for it in your favorites, please never speak to me or make contact with me. Doing this shit makes you pathetic. Also can ignore it, and don't give me that but it's everywhere, or that I'm expressing my opinion excuse. I've seen chain smokers trying to quit smoking have better willpower than guy. As for the expressing my opinion excuse that reeks of entitlement, pretty much the I'm better than you mentality. If you're one of those assholes, stay away from me.
So, let me get this straight. You don't want to contact anyone for simply disagreeing with you and hating something that you love, including the Loud House and the Casagrams, and can't and won't accept a different opinion? Sounds like to me, you don't handle a single different opinion and prove you were having an unhealthy obsession with the Loud House and no problem with hate memes and hate art out of David's ass lab. How far beyond hypocritical you are and lying about respect opinion. It's not like people spend all day hate memes and hate art in stuff you like and painting them as trolls for simply disagreeing with you and such, even in the slightest, that aren't the train load of hate memes or anything involving popular media. Not just the way it is. Speaking of trolls that I mentioned, well, this is a no-brainer, when he makes very bad calls out and uses criticism as an excuse for a constant harassment campaign against other users before he stopped. As I previously mentioned, Smoking-Wrecker deleted a certain amount of calls out memes and such, but I did my best to describe with limited publishes. Daniel is known for troll feeding when he barely functions how to stop feeding them and gave them attention several times. For one, anytime Daniel sees trolls post on his recommendation and whatnot, he immediately freaks out and constantly posts butts for status posts and tells them to block trolls, while continually talking trash about them. Especially where he dealt with Robotnik, the one name after the best meme and joke got ruined, and encouraged them to mass report and post butt-for comments at the same time. Although he does block an out of trolls, Smoking-Wrecker still talks shit about trolls, and whenever trolls or rage-bait keep coming back, he still complains and has the gall to use a job application as a weapon, not realizing he basically feeds the trolls and more attention, thus he encourages them to attack and mass report them. And he goes his way to make a poll about if internet trolls should be illegal, in which made me roll my eyes at him for overdramatic troll feeders. ROO, they are just trolls, and they out there wants attentions. You should not have fall for trolls and made them more and more trolls coming after you that you feed them by yapping about them. And neither are you falling for ragebait too. Apart from certain ragebaiters who make very insensitive memes as an excuse for a satire or dark humor purpose that is disrespectful as shit. Us, Daniel is complaining about the ragebait account and their content every time satire memes involve loud house leaking everywhere and some shit. I like how you used a cartoon episode and being a role model just to make an argument valid, and using a cartoon character to quote on trolls doesn't do jack shit if you play a role model like that, while you can't help yourself and begging for trolls coming after you after you kept troll feeding non-stop. Therefore, Daniel whines about the staff barely taking action against ragebait and trolls, and compares it to his deep hatred of beaten to death cartoons and gibberish. Jeez, can he stop treating Teen Titans Go like it's the end of the world, for Christ's sake? It's not 2013-2015 anymore, and you are just contradicting yourself much further when you compared to them. The way he cares only about internet trolls and ragebait ruining that website rather than the biggest problems like pedophiles and so on is pathetic and laughable. I sort of get that trolls can be cyberbullying if it goes too far, but once again, they want attention and it's not like they try to reveal their home address or any of that in favor of ragebait just to tick off cartoon abuse and all. And that's the least of the worries about the message change, given scammers are roaming everywhere from what I heard, so you should be grateful instead of lashing out at the staff. And the same can be said for another laughable meme, and he has the goal to make memes about them and try to argue that filling gaps are quote-unquote creative and half-ass explanations of the seg, ignoring the fact that he can't help himself by continually feeding the trolls and some shit, while he contradicts his points, even if it is warranted. If DeviantArt has a main problem, you should be addressing pedophiles, witch hunters, art thieves, and so on instead of crying over internet trolls and ragebait that you have skewed priorities. On top of that, Smoking-Wrecker has caused several dramas with other deviants and used call out as an excuse in spitefully butts-for memes and encourages his followers to go after them, and so on. I once heard that he lashes out at someone for constantly bad-mouthing on the loud house and mindless insults, which proves not only their point, but also over-defensive cartoon abuse. I honestly have no clue what's going on or behind the scenes, but it sounds like you don't take too kindly for a person being brutally honest about your precious loud house and in retaliation try to get your entire fanbase to join your harassment campaign against him. In other words, to the extent Smoking-Wrecker goes his way to mindless insult, lash out, and make memes about them where fictional characters do violence tough in another deviant to make him feel any better or a cool person, not realizing it not only makes him borderline immature, but also straight up a-logging. At least, he does it with one deviant, which I can't remember the whole incident, after he drew something rash and despicable after the episode aired, and Smoking-Wrecker chose to angrily lash out and thrash at him for making the kind of art he drew. Whatever it is, in case you did not notice, Smoking-Wrecker memes are not calling out, it's flat out cyberbullying and harassment, and you have no one to blame but yourself when things don't go your way and pick a fight with them. Hell, not even this kind of beef with Misanthropony or hidden agenda that he is actively witching and applauding rather than spreading awareness against him. To be frank, I heard everything that Misanthropony has done, given that he harassed and threatened several people for having different opinions and even said the most insensitive comment when he badmouthed someone's pet dying, blackmailed someone, and death wishes on several companies for making such movies, and all that vile behavior. It's just flat out disgusting how he did that and has him send loony bin for a kind of miserable prick to be around here. However, Smoking-Wrecker can't help himself because of being a-logging and self-centered. and I find it ironic that Smoking-Wrecker hates cyberbullying with a passion, despite his frequently demonizing the hell out of trolls or users upon status posts says otherwise. Oh, funny example that Smoking-Wrecker once had a beef with McFan85 for making tons of gross art involving loud cest and shit, and called out several times and retuning at the same time, yet he doesn't seem to have a problem with loud house fetishes in his favorite sections and remains friends with them, who especially happens to be in real life child actor fetishes. And whenever they got called out, Smoking-Wrecker straight up white knight and proceeded to bovine insult, to the point he promotes pedo enablers, as he disgustingly defended them, which he actually got featured and called out by the packaged reviewer during Tanasweet's rant as a result. Talk about irony from memes about the loud house fandom is toxic that he has no room to talk, that's for sure. And, of course, Daniel has an absurd tweet that he apparently treats the good user versus bad users war as a real thing, which made me roll my eyes at his statement.
The whole good user versus bad user don't exist bullshit is something bad users say something to cover their track, but poorly.
So, let me guess. You only say that just because trolls post or simply call you out for your behaviors, and especially call yourself good users just because you have the same opinion as theirs, and so on. Right, I could say the same thing when you call yourself good users, when you are a borderline narcissist, and avoid backlash against you. I definitely see why you have been watching grounded videos and some shit in a certain drag and drop, and still living in 2011, as an excuse to call themselves good users nonsense, I can tell. Not to mention, Daniel is a star of attention seekers. He always say something that he's going to leave DeviantArt because of burdens and dramas and stuff like that, as part of the reason this site is lost caused, but every time he announced, he keep coming back and backing out in the last second, assumedly, because he apparently doesn't want to lose his friends, and sometimes hates being ignored and keeps pulling the same stunt all over again. It's deeply confused me that he insists on staying on that cursed art website, just because he has many good friends in which he only tolerates them as long as they are on same page as him and giving him talk no jutsu to stay longer and desperately hopes that the site is saved someday, which I doubt it's going to happen since it lost caused for obvious reasons. He states he willingly takes a break in March in case something happens to him or was planning to leave for good, but as I already tell him no drama happens, it's clear that he wants attention anytime he is planning to leave, only to back out in the last second, because he misses them, as their fellow followers and whatnot in exchange to interacting with loud house and stuff he loves as long as tons of people stay for a sole reason as well as wanting to keep his rep intact. It's incredibly annoying. If I were you, Daniel, I would simply deactivate this dumpster website altogether and be done with it, instead of repeatedly making excuses to remain here in exchange for attention or and boosting my rep, and not to abuse the activate and reactivate on and off. By the end of the day, Smoking-Wrecker is a grade A definition of man-child, preachy, and narcissistic, the way he makes poor reviews and opinions on funny memes, actual or fun slops, cartoon abuse, and so on. He always makes a fool of himself, as he proves his and everyone's points and calls himself good users just because he says so. It's really beyond me that Smoking-Wrecker or Daniel Trinka has got away with all his bullshit and somehow has 1,000 watchers, mostly because of probably the loud house content, in both memes and fanfiction. Not helped by the fact he is 31-year-old, yet barely acts his own age, and an overgrown edgelord doesn't surprise me for one bit. And beyond embarrassing. And if he ever attempts to abuse false flag in an attempt to silence me and whatnot, I would love to try to see him try and demonize me for calling him out in his degenerate behaviors and try to debunk it, as if I want attention nonsense. It's already got to the point that he lost caused and I have no sympathy for him. He did it to himself for causing problems on that site for years, and cares only about himself and his fame. That's all I have to say, and I'll see you in the next videos, as I am currently playing Baldur's Gate 3 to catch up.